seriously popular.
Welcome back to MAGAland. We're very excited to be here today. We have a very special guest. We have a former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer with us to kick off the day. We'll be running through a lot of what's going on in Trump's White House. It's been a crazy, chaotic week, as it has been since the beginning of the second administration. We'll be running through some of Trump's new tariff threats, a potential invasion of Greenland, Tiger Woods and Vanessa Trump's exclusive new relationship broken by DailyMail.com. We'll also take a look at Elon Musk and his latest baby mama drama, JD Vance getting booed at the Kennedy Center, anti-DOGE protests across the United States. And to kick it all off, we are joined here today by Sean Spicer. Sean, thank you so much for joining MAGAland.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
Welcome to MAGAland.
We are so happy to have you here in MAGAland. We always talk about this wild difference culturally between Trump's first term and the second term. He's so much more accepted now. It doesn't mean immediate cancellation to come out in support of Trump. Many celebrities have done it. Now, this was different when you had to face the press in the White House. You were the first one there when everyone was freaking out that Trump was actually going to be running the country, and you were the first to face those questions. Tell me about that difference, because you had it so much harder the first time around, just nonstop attacks. And are you a little bit jealous that it's so much better now?
I'm glad you used that word. I spoke to the president a few days back, and I said that exact same thing to him. I said, with all due respect, I'm a bit jealous of this term. Not that I'm not honored by what we were able to do the first time, but you're absolutely right. It's night and day. I remember not being able to walk outside, walk down the street, or without being chased or yelled at. And now people are, to your point, whether it's Hollywood or just everyday people, are walking down the street with a MAGA hat on, are excited about what's going on in Trump world, and clearly more accepted. You see this in corporate America and big tech, even to some extent in Hollywood. And it's not an embrace, but it's not the same hatred and resistance that existed last time. The world has changed so much. And I think part of this, and I've said this for a lot of reasons, but you're touching on the culture piece of this, because it wasn't a successive presidency back to back the way all but one other one have been, people got to see the contrast in the policies between Trump and then Biden and Harris, and got to literally compare them in a very real way, the way that you don't normally in politics. So most of the time when people campaign, it's a hypothetical proposition. I'll do this for you. I'll fight harder. I'll get this. And the American people, when they went to vote in November, said very clearly, we saw Trump for 4 years. We saw Biden and Harris for 4 years. Which did we like better? It's like going into a store and having tried both products and knowing which one you think will be better for you. They got to see that very clearly in a way that a campaign doesn't do justice to. When an ad comes through, it's all trying to sell you on something. This time people said, I knew what it was like under Trump. I knew what it was like under Biden. I want to go back to Trump.
As you now know, the Trump administration has taken over the press room. They are deciding who gets to be in the pool. Who would you have kicked out back then if you could do it the way they kicked out the Associated Press?
First of all, they didn't kick out the Associated Press, right? The Associated Press is still there. They've got their press credentials. They're not letting them into the president's office, which I think is a great move, well-deserved, and it sends a different tone. Just two quick things before I'll give you my answer in a second. But when I was there, I introduced Skype, and I brought reporters into the briefing room 4 at a time from around the country to ask questions. And I thought that was a way of allowing issues like water rights, land use, all these things that normally don't get asked in the briefing room to come in. They went nuts then. There was a USA Today headline, I have it somewhere around here, that said, when the going gets tough, Spicer goes to Skype, which actually was ridiculous because most of the reporters were from outside the Beltway and had tough questions. They just weren't about Russia and Michael Flynn. And when Caroline was doing this, it was such a great way. So the other thing is, they had told me my first day, you need to call on the Associated Press first. When you've gone on long enough, that reporter will say, thank you very much. That signals the end of your briefing. And I was like, nope, not going to happen. And I think Caroline has taken and put her own stamp on this and really shaken up the briefing room. Because here's the thing that people have to remember. It's not theirs. It's the American people's. This is the White House. It's not the press's room to decide who gets to go when and how it works. It's the American people's. It's the taxpayers of the United States. And I think Caroline has put that priority back in line, which is it's not your room. It's not you guys get to determine this. And I'm really proud of it. I think I probably would have easily kicked out Jim Acosta first. Then Brian Karem, who is the Playboy correspondent.
Oh, that's a surprising one.
See, that's why I'm just showing you. That's why you have to read the articles. There's a bunch of people during my tenure that got cable contracts, not because they were good at their job, more because they were full of antics and could make an ass out of themselves in the briefing room, and then CNN would give them a contract.
Just wanted to point out that Jim Acosta, he did get a higher profile over those exchanges with you, but now that's the same thing that was his downfall at CNN.
But think about this real quick, and I apologize, Kelly, before I get to this. When Trump was first in office in 2017, CNN, MSNBC, the Washington Post, New York Times, their ratings and their subscription went up. People wanted that resistance, and they turned to them to be that resistance. And over the last 7 years or so, the American people have wised up and realized that those organizations are spreading misinformation, are not true in terms of what they tell the American people. And they've gone down. Their ratings have hit the floor. Jim Acosta got fired. All this stuff happened. And the Washington Post and New York Times are just bleeding subscriptions because people aren't looking at them as the arbiters of the truth anymore. And when they talk about democracy dying in darkness at the Washington Post, it's actually, what's happening is they bleed subscribers in public, not in darkness. And they're paying the price for their biased coverage over the last several years. But it's exactly the opposite. There used to be a reward in the first Trump term for antics. You'd get a cable contract. You'd make more money. Now they're shedding them.
You mentioned Caroline shaking up the press briefing room. As a former press secretary yourself, how would you rate her performance so far? And have you guys talked? Have you given her any pieces of advice?
So yeah, we've talked a bunch. We text. She's actually on my show tonight. These inside baseball conversations I love, like that I have with her today, because everybody wants to ask her about what does the president think on that? And I think that's great. That's her job. But I like talking to her press secretary to press secretary, what it's like for you, what's been different, stuff that we just talked about.
Things like, are you getting sleep?
The funny thing is I still do have a very supportive family and wife who my kids were young and super supportive. Caroline is the mob. So I was able to lean on my wife a lot during that period. And I just can't imagine what Caroline's doing as super mom / press secretary. I mean, like she's doing it all and doing it in Trump time, which means you're up early, you're up late, you're working 7 days a week. And she's just killing it. Every once in a while, you look at the people who come after you in a job and, you go, I did it better. But she really is just doing a great, fantastic job in so many different ways. When I spoke to the president about it, he really respects the job that she's doing and she's earned it. That's the thing. She's earned every bit of the praise that she's getting. And I think that's just fantastic. She's young. She's 27 years old, but you'd never know it. She stands at that podium with a degree of poise and command of the issues that's so commendable.
Sean, you mentioned that you speak with Trump quite frequently. Can you take us inside how you've maintained a good relationship with him over the years, as we've seen so many different fallouts with him and some of his closest advisors? What's sort of the Trump whisperer advice you would give?
I think there's a couple different types of people out there. I am a believer, not just with President Trump, but throughout my personal and professional life, that if you have a relationship with someone, treat that with respect. So President Trump honored me with a job, and I will always be indebted to him for doing that for me. Since I left the White House, he's endorsed all 4 books I've written. He voted for me on Dancing with the Stars. He helped participate in a documentary I did on Trump supporters. He has been a great friend to me and a loyal friend to me. And my view is if I have a problem with President Trump, when I do, if I ever did, I would share my thoughts with him in private the way I would another friend. I think too many people take advantage of his kindness and his friendship and his generosity and turn around as soon as it's politically expedient to publicly condemn some issue they have with him. You don't do that to a friend. not someone who is helpful like he has been to me anyway. And I find it despicable the way that some of these people have turned on him so quickly because they thought it would be politically advantageous to them. So my answer is I don't do anything different to President Trump than I do with another friend, which is treat him with the level of respect that he treats me. I appreciate and am grateful for his generosity and friendship and support. And I treat him that way. I think that's all he asks. The biggest myth about Trump is that he doesn't take criticism well. I've shared with him every once in a while an issue, and I do it with the level of respect that you would do another friend. Sometimes he agrees with me. Sometimes he tells me I'm nuts. But if you want to air your grievances publicly, it speaks volumes for you as a person.
We've seen here in MAGAland that Trump does not like anyone to speak about him elsewhere. I think that's where Zelensky really messed up that negotiation. What do you think?
As I said, he welcomes criticism and critiques. How you do it matters. Look, I got to be honest with you. I've had a lot of people that I've known in Washington a long time. Some people I considered friends. I mean, you talk about the briefing room. I've known a lot of these people for decades. If you have a problem with me, come to me and tell me, hey, look, I got an issue with you, or I don't like the way you said it. I make mistakes all the time. I'll own them usually, not always. But if you want to go on television and throw me under the bus, we're not friends, just so we're clear. That's not how you treat somebody. Come to them, you express the concerns that you have. There are too many people in Washington on a personal level. So I just want to be clear. I think President Trump doesn't mind criticism, but I don't think it's unique to him to want people to treat you with a level of respect that if you have a problem, come to him and say to him, hey, I think we could do this better. I'm not really sure I agree with the tone or tenor or something. I don't know that I'm any different than him in that respect. Don't air your grievances publicly. That's the one thing that I would, say that's different from a lot of these people is they think somehow going on television or on X and going after him is a smart move. I wouldn't appreciate that. And I don't think that he does either.
And on that note, you had some advice for the president presented very respectfully in a column you wrote for the Washington Times. You said he's been doing great reducing undocumented immigration, but that's not enough. Tell me about your article.
Yeah. And when I said it's not enough, just to be clear, I love what the president has done on immigration. He just has proven how gaslit we were by the Biden administration and the media that nothing could get done. He's done it. He's shown it. My fear is that what has been done by executive order can be undone by executive order, just the same way that Biden undid so much of what Trump did in term one, and then Trump undid what Biden did. What has been done by executive order can be undone. And what I want is to lock in the wins that President has had legislatively. I want a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate to lock in these wins. Take all the stuff, whether it's funding for ICE and Border Patrol, visa reform, the number of folks we let in immigration, a meritocracy and how we let people in, all of those things, and codify them in legislation so that another president can't be undone. If we think about what's going on in DOGE, the courts are basically saying the law doesn't allow this or the law allows this. We need to take the wins that President Trump has fought for on immigration and achieved and lock in many of those things legislatively so that a future Democratic president or Congress can't screw us on them.
One of the biggest criticisms that Elon Musk and Trump are getting right now is that DOGE cuts are affecting veterans. You, as being in the Navy, still in the reserves, that's a big part of your past and your history. And you've just also been appointed to this new, or I guess the Naval Board appointment that you were on previously, but this is a big appointment. How, as a service member yourself, how do you view DOGE's cuts, particularly when it comes to the military?
Well, there's two aspects. Cuts to the military. I think the Pentagon is well overdue for reform and an audit. They haven't passed one in 8 years. So I think the idea of looking at the military writ large is good. When it comes to veterans, look, I feel bad when anybody loses their job, especially somebody who has served this country. That being said, veterans make an outsized proportion because of veteran hiring status. So when they apply for a federal job, they get preference. Alaskan Natives, certain other minorities, veterans get preference in hiring. And I'm glad that we're taking care of our veterans because in many cases, they go serve our nation. They, for a variety of issues, may not have an easier time in the private sector. And I'm glad that we're there to provide something for them. That being said, we're $2 trillion in deficit, $36 trillion in debt. We've got to prioritize how we do our jobs. We're not taking away the preference for veterans, but I think some of the jobs that they're filling might be duplicative, might be outdated or inefficient, or so sometimes there's going to be some churn as we go through this DOGE process of rooting out inefficiencies and duplicities in government. And so, unfortunately, because of the outside disproportionate number of veterans that fill those jobs, they're going to be part of that effort, if you will. So my thing is, I hope that we're able to correct at some point, meaning you can't just weed them out of the process, but hopefully because of veteran preferences, at some point as we reorganize, that we can make sure that as we fill new things, that they're also part of that effort.
For our last question, I have to go back to culture in MAGAland because you mentioned Dancing with the Stars and the fact that then President Trump supported you. Could anything put more of a target on your back in Los Angeles than you already had? So I want to hear about, did you have any crazy celebrity experiences where they came up to you angry, or celebrities who maybe said, I am secretly supportive of Trump? How was that time in LA at the height of Trump derangement syndrome?
It's interesting that you asked that question. I had an absolutely fabulous experience on the show. It's a great team. They call it a family for a reason. It's been going on what, 20-something, 28th season now, 29. Great group of people, many of them consistent from season 1 or season 2 or something like that. I can't say enough about the team that's there. Everything from the hair and makeup to craft services to the senior producers, production assistants. The team that I was on, the other celebrities on the show were great to deal with. I have some great friends that I've maintained since the show. The interesting thing is on two fronts that you bring up. One, there was a lot of people in LA and in Hollywood who secretly will come to you and say, I can't say anything, but I'm with you. And then secondly, the only negative experience I had was general public people who would say something, in the course of the studio lot where they come up and say, I don't like your old boss or whatever, or something like that. It was never the people on set though.
Last question. What was harder, Dancing with the Stars or dealing with the White House press?
Dancing with the Stars. Because you can stand behind a podium. Look, there was more mental taxation when it came to the briefings, but I've no rhythm and no artistic qualities in my body. So when I did the show, that was a whole nother level. You can hide behind a podium, at least from here up. You can't do that on a show. That was definitely more of a physical challenge, as well as getting ready to go, oh, by the way, you're going to wear this silly outfit and then you're going to go outside for 4 minutes and dance around, showing people how little flexibility and rhythm you have, and anyone in the world can watch it. I loved it. I loved every minute of it, but it was probably a little easier to stand behind a podium with notes.
That's funny. Dancing was scarier than Jim Acosta.
Well, Jim Acosta never scared me. He annoyed the hell out of me, but he didn't scare me.
Thank you so much for this MAGAland insight. Truly, it's a few people who have remained friendly with the president from the first term. So You are particularly equipped to give us some MAGAland tea, as we call it here.
MAGAland tea, I like that.
Well, thank you so much. And we'll be back after the break.
Well, that was quite an interview with Sean Spicer. I think we learned a lot about how Trump thinks, how they've remained friends, and the latest drama that's been going on behind the scenes.
That was certainly a moment that gives us insight that we really are going to need to decipher Trump's moves over the next term.
I thought it was interesting, too, that he speaks with Caroline so frequently. And he said he's a little jealous of her.
He knows how to deal with Trump. I think that could be another career path, teach diplomats how to handle the president. But it's time to speak about more tariffs. Oh, my Lord. So all of these tariffs are supposed to go into effect, including on the EU, on April 1st, which Trump says the EU was created to take advantage of the US. So, of course, we must tariff them. This is what Trump said about the beautiful day coming when the tariffs will fix everything. Let's listen.
Of course I'm going to respond.
You will
The
retaliate with
problem
more
is our
tariffs.
country didn't respond. But there will be very little flexibility once we start. April 2nd is going to be a very big day for the United States of America. The United States of America is going to take back a lot of what was stolen from it by other countries and by, frankly, incompetent U.S. leadership, grossly incompetent.
Kelly, things continue to escalate. The EU is saying they're going to put, what is it? I think it's a 50% tariffs on American goods like whiskey. And Trump did not like that and has threatened to put a 200% tariff on wine and liquor from Europe. This seems dangerous for him.
This was a massive escalation in this already dramatic tariff drama between the United States and the EU this time. Trump's threat to put a 200% tariff on goods, and that includes wine and champagne coming from Europe. So there was a lot of backlash on social media that I saw a lot of Democrats tweeting that this is going to hand them the suburban women vote next election cycle because women won't be able to get their wine.
And I'm thinking, because Trump famously doesn't drink, so maybe he's not thinking about that.
I think this is just a threat to get the EU back in line and walk back this 50% whiskey tax. Because so far we've seen this pattern, and we've talked about this before, but when Trump escalates the trade war threats, the other country, they acquiesce to him and they roll back those initial tariffs. And then Trump's in a more of a powerful bargaining position. So we'll see what happens with this threat. I think there's ongoing negotiations between the European Union and Trump's advisors right now to try to figure out a path forward on this front. But Trump has really just put the pedal to the metal on these tariffs this week.
I'm going to repeat what I said on our last episode that some of our viewers, I think, didn't like. But I think what's going to happen is that these countries are going to get together. Canadians are already wanting to join the European Union. Yes, the U.S. is the world empire, but what's going to happen when all these countries getting bullied say, hey, maybe we should stick together and work as a unit against the U.S. demands? So that's something that also could happen. Speaking of the U.S.'s advancement in the world, there's news on Trump's desire to acquire Greenland.
That's right. Trump has hinted that he plans to take over Greenland and also use U.S. soldiers to do just that, which he's teased a little bit in the past. He's really gone right up to that borderline by saying that he's going to take over Greenland by any means possible by using force. But yesterday, he actually said in a meeting with the NATO Secretary General that because Greenland is needed so desperately for the security of the United States, he said, quote, we have quite a few soldiers there already, which is true. There is a military base on Greenland. And then he just reiterated, quote, we may see more soldiers go there. So that would be quite a departure from the United States' current policy toward Greenland. It is a very thinly veiled threat, and Greenland is reacting as if it's going to happen. They had a huge drama unfold in Greenland. Their leader said, enough is enough. This needs to end. These threats cannot continue. I don't really think we'll probably put more boots on the ground in terms of an invasion. But I think that there is going to be some economic pressures probably applied to Greenland to get them to the United States.
Maybe the new empire will be Canada, Greenland, the EU, Ukraine.
Interestingly, Pete Hegseth was seated on the couch in the Oval Office during this meeting, and he was nodding his head in agreement with Trump the entire time. He's really the one that would be greenlighting these troops over. So it seems like there's probably been some discussions behind closed doors that we haven't been privy to on this front.
But now we're going to switch gears a bit because Kelly actually, as the director of politics at Daily Mail, had a big scoop on her team this week. I started hearing the newsroom. I know when there's a scoop that no one's telling me, and I just have a sense of it. And I sensed it yesterday, and nobody would tell me what it was. But Kelly, take over.
Called me.
This was a good one. I know. I thought about it, but everyone was being so mysterious.
Well, I have to shout out my reporter, Caitlin Corrali. She was on MAGAland earlier this week discussing her other scoop on Puerto Rico, but she had an amazing exclusive that we broke yesterday afternoon. that Tiger Woods is now secretly dating Vanessa Trump. Mind explosion. As some of you guys might recall, Vanessa is the ex-wife of Donald Trump Jr., and they share 5 kids together, including Kai Trump, who's become a MAGA star in recent months. And she's also Trump's eldest grandchild. So this is explosive. I think it's just like shaking up the golf communities, the MAGA communities. I think it's a perfect match. I totally ship them as a couple. They connected because their kids are the same age. They go to the same school down in Jupiter, Florida, and they're also involved in the same activities. As we know, Kai is a very good golfer. She was actually at a tournament with Tiger a few weeks ago, and that's where Tiger and Vanessa were actually photographed together because she was there to support her daughter. But they've been dating actually all the way since Thanksgiving, a source.
What? That was going to be my question. How long has it been?
It's been quite some time, actually. They've been very good at keeping it under the wraps. They don't really go out in public or seen at restaurants, although they've been at golfing tournaments together just because of the Kai connection and their children being the same age. But they have spent lots of time together. The Trump children are well aware of this relationship. They've been spending time with Don Jr. while Vanessa's with Tiger. And so I think this is an open secret down in the Palm Beach communities.
He is friends with Trump, right? Tiger Woods.
He was actually at the White House 2 weeks ago for Black History Month when he was shouted out by the president. They also played a round of golf together recently. They are pretty good friends.
Wow. Could we maybe see Tiger Woods as part of the Trump family picture at events?
Imagine him speaking at the next Republican convention or getting out on the campaign trail. It would be quite the shakeup.
I'm really shocked by this story, although I guess it does make sense in the West Palm Beach golf world. But good for Vanessa, because I always wonder, like, what is she doing after divorce? So now we know she's fine.
Yeah.
We have more baby mama drama also for Elon Musk. Like we have said, we don't know how he has the time. The singer Grimes, who we've talked about here, has said that she does not want her son X being paraded around with Elon Musk, has really escalated her online fight against Elon Musk. So she said, I unfortunately do not control the internet and cannot wipe this from the internet. I have tried begging the public and my kid's dad to keep them offline, and I've tried legal recourse. I follow you here and I've seen young people destroyed by the internet too. The state of my children's lives being public is of grave concern to me, and I think about how to solve this every day. It's insane to me that there's no way to deal with this. I would hope there was some law that would allow a parent to veto small children from living public lives, but I don't trust the law to help me now if I try to invoke it. To be honest, we are in the wild west of information content and the dismantling of privacy, and it's very concerning. What is going on here, Kelly? Because they have 3 kids, but she seems to not have any legal control of just little X.
I think this all is coming to a head because X was also at the Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Tesla show at the White House. So he was just most recently in the media and the press. There's thousands of photos of him online. And it comes after he was in that White House meeting. He was also meeting with heads of state with Elon. It seems, though, that this is a pattern because we've seen Grimes take to X to try to get the attention of Musk about getting her son offline. We saw this also with the other MAGA influencer girl, Ashley St. Clair, who also is trying to reach out to Elon. It seems like Elon is like off the grid. Maybe he's really hard to reach, or he's ignoring their pleas because he's just doing what he wants. This is all unfolding again in the public eye. We know exactly where their relationship stands, which we thought they were on better terms because she seemed to be the last standing actual girlfriend compared to just a baby mama.
But let's talk about JD Vance, because as we have discussed, he is the president's new guard dog, and that comes with backlash. He's been having a hard time and a lot of protests, the last one at the Kennedy Center, right?
Vance was brutally booed when he attended a Kennedy Center event last night. It comes as Trump basically overhauled the Kennedy Center board. We've discussed this. That really got a lot of people angry. So when Vance entered last night, he was not welcomed with open arms and he was booed. I think he was also seated next to Usha. So it was sort of an awkward event, but it's a new trend that we're seeing where big Republican faces, lawmakers, movers and shakers in the MAGA movement, wherever they're going, they're getting backlash.
But Kelly, we just talked about how that used to happen all the time in the first term of the Trump administration.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen it as much until now.
Yeah. And actually, just about an hour ago, Vance got to Michigan. He's delivering a speech there, touring some factories. And there was a very coordinated effort. This time it was a group of people who are against the arrest of the Columbia grad student who has Hamas ties that ICE arrested last week. So a big group of about 50 to 100 disrupted his speech. And Vance was having none of that. He actually had a brutal clapback to them. So do you think this is a trend that we can anticipate continuing?
Thinking about it now, because I think these protests against JD Vance began with the Ukraine-Russia deal, and a lot of pro-Ukraine people were upset at JD Vance. But now that you're telling me about this protest for the Palestinian student, that does seem a little different than the first organic ones. So no, I don't think this is going to be a trend the way that it was in the first term. I was actually thinking the other day, we haven't even seen any like organized march or protest in the way that there were. Remember the March for Women, that I think like 1 million people went to Washington, traveled for that march. We have had nothing like that. I keep thinking like the left overdid it with Trump derangement syndrome the first time around. So now, even when difficult things are happening, like the tariffs that are concerning, people are just not having, I don't know if it's the energy or the care to go out there and do anything about it.
The only thing I do see growing in momentum are the takeovers of more localized town hall meetings. We actually had a crazy explosive one happen just last night. Let's take a listen to how Congressman Edwards was brutally heckled.
I feel like this is not productive with everybody yelling at me. I mean, if you want to hear, yeah. The questions are coming out of the box one at a time. I'm answering those for you. You're not going to like a lot of them. And you certainly will have the right in the next election to cast your vote based off of what you hear coming from me now. All right.
I've actually been writing about a few of these chaotic town halls. I did a story. It was a California congressman, I believe, who had the same reception. And a lot of the heckling and the protesters are focused on DOGE.
Yeah, they're very anti-Elon Musk. And that's the main theme that's running through all of these. And these people are not holding back. And the clip we just listened to, you could see how crazy it gets on the ground. These are people who are really enthusiastic. They're the ones that are calling their members of Congress every single day. They have people who might be impacted by these layoffs or have friends or family members. So these people are very incensed. They think that Elon Musk is stealing all their information. They're against the cuts and they're taking it out on these Republican members who have been warned not to do these anymore.
This is the moment of inflection here, because to go back to, are there going to be more demonstrations against Trump? I think it's not going to be over social, cultural things, but as I always say, it's people's wallets, particularly the issues around Social Security. Elon Musk has not been shy about saying that he does not believe Social Security should or can survive. And I think if you start messing with people's retirements, veteran benefits, which apparently are also upcoming, I think that's when we could see real huge manifestations. But I also see Trump responding to that. So
I also think that there is going to be a more organized movement coming out of Congress to backlash Trump. AOC actually previewed it earlier this week. She said that she's going to be organizing counter protests to Trump in some of the reddest counties in the United States, which It's a very bold proposal because she won't be welcomed there with open arms. She said that she's going to get groups of individuals organized to have these rallies. She's going to speak at them. Bernie Sanders is going to speak at them.
They still don't get it, Kelly. It's like, yes, AOC and Bernie Sanders are the way to go, clearly, after the last election.
Right.
Let's all make fun of Gavin Newsom for trying to talk to the other side and be a moderate because Bernie Sanders and socialism are the way.
Yeah. And they're going after Gavin Newsom for hosting Steve Bannon on his podcast. They're really unhappy. They're saying this is not the path forward for the Democrats. But we've talked about this. There has to be some happy medium. I think what Gavin Newsom is really smart, and I think more should follow his advice. I don't think they have to go quite as extreme as interviewing Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon.
You could have started with, like Jeb Bush.
Yeah, I think that there's a way to have conversations between Democrats and Republicans where each side can express their views.
But on that note of the Democrats and what are they going to do, we got to mention that Pete Buttigieg, who's another name that's been thrown out there, we were waiting to see if he was going to run for governor or a Senate seat. And he says he's not, which has everyone thinking he's running for president. So I guess he would be like the in-between what Gavin Newsom is doing and what AOC do. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Also, Rahm Emanuel has been floating himself as a potential candidate, and he has been getting a lot of hate for that from members of the Democratic Party.
But how can he think that's a good idea?
I don't know.
He is of destroying Chicago fame. Whether that's true or not, it's to blame on him. He is the face of that. Again, that's not the way to go.
Yeah, Tim Walz is having a town hall tonight, so maybe we'll see him announce another move in the political scene, which I don't think anyone wants on the right or the left.
Absolutely not. I literally did not even remember his name the other day when we wanted to talk about him. That's the state of MAGAland on March 14th.
Thank you all for joining us on Welcome to MAGAland. We've had a crazy episode with Sean Spicer and more. And please tune in next week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have some more exciting guests coming up, and we can't wait to speak to you then.